My girlfriend texted, having lunch with Berlin, just call an Uber. I was still bleeding on the highway after a car crash. She was still enjoying her meal with her beloved best friend, until a cop arrived at her table to deliver my emergency message. I, 28M, am a structural engineer living in Chicago. Or at least I was until my life decided to implode in the most spectacular way possible. I build things for a living. I design frameworks that are supposed to withstand massive amounts of stress without buckling. Bridges, high-rises, support beams. It's funny because while I was obsessing over load-bearing walls at work, I didn't notice that the foundation of my own personal life was made of wet cardboard and lies. For 3 years, I was the sole provider for my girlfriend, who we'll call Sarah, 26F. I paid the mortgage on the condo in the city. I paid the lease on her luxury SUV because she needed it for her image as an aspiring lifestyle influencer, and I paid for the endless stream of dinners and vacations she claimed were necessary for her mental health. I loved her, I really did. I thought we were building a future, but there was always a third wheel in our relationship. Enter Tyler, 28M. Sarah called him her twin flame or her platonic soulmate. I just called him a headache. He was that guy who peaked in college and never quite figured out how to function as an adult. He didn't have a job, he had projects. He was writing a screenplay, then he was launching a crypto app, then he was becoming a life coach. Sarah insisted I be supportive because Tyler was family. That support usually meant me picking up the tab when the three of us went out, or Tyler crashing on our couch for weeks at a time because his roommates were toxic. The dynamic was exhausting. I worked 60-hour weeks to fund a lifestyle that Sarah and Tyler got to enjoy while I was at the office. If I complained, I was being controlling or jealous. If I asked Tyler when he was leaving, Sarah would cry and say I didn't understand the bond of true friendship. I felt like the third wheel in my own relationship, the wallet that breathed. It all came to a breaking point on a rainy Tuesday last November. Tyler had insisted on a lunch meeting. He had a groundbreaking business proposal he wanted to pitch to me. He claimed he needed seed money for a chain of artisanal coffee shops that also sold vintage vinyl. I didn't want to go. I was swamped at the firm with a deadline looming, but Sarah had been relentless. She sent me text after text about how important this was to Tyler and how I needed to stop being so stingy with my time. She booked a table at this upscale bistro about 30 minutes from my office, right off the highway. I was driving my SUV, trying to make up time. It was pouring rain, visibility was garbage, and I was already 10 minutes late. I hated being late. I checked the clock on the dashboard, 12:45 p.m. That's when my life changed forever. I was in the middle lane of I-90 when a massive pickup truck in the oncoming lane lost control. It hydroplaned, jumped the median strip, and didn't just clip me, it demolished me. I saw the grill of the truck for a split second, like a metal wall flying at my face, and then the world turned into noise and violence. The sound of a car crash is distinct. It's not just a bang, it's the sound of tearing metal, shattering glass, and the sickening crunch of the frame folding in on itself. My SUV spun across 3 lanes, flipped over, and slid upside down until it slammed into the concrete barrier. When the spinning stopped, there was an eerie silence, followed immediately by the hissing of the radiator and the smell of gasoline and copper. I was hanging upside down, held in by my seatbelt. My left leg was pinned under the crushed dashboard. I couldn't feel it at first, just a dull pressure, but then the adrenaline wore off and the pain hit me like a sledgehammer. It felt like my leg was being put through a meat grinder. I looked down, or up technically, and saw blood pooling on the roof of the car. It was coming from my leg and a gash on my head. My vision was swimming. I knew I was in trouble, serious trouble. I could hear distant sirens, but they sounded miles away. My phone was still in the magnetic mount, miraculously intact but with a cracked screen. I reached for it with shaking hands. My fingers were slick with blood. I managed to unlock it and opened my messages with Sarah. I needed her to know. I needed to hear her voice. I typed out a message, my thumbs barely working. Crash, I-90, bad, trapped in car, bleeding bad, please help. I hit send. I watched the screen, fighting to stay conscious. The gray bubble appeared.
Then, almost instantly, the red receipt popped up. She was looking at her phone right now. I waited for the call. I waited for, "I'm on my way," or "Oh my God." Instead, 3 little dots danced on the screen. Then the reply came through. "OMG, stop. We already ordered apps. Having lunch with Berlin. Just call an Uber if you're going to be late. Don't be dramatic." A second message followed immediately. "Tyler says hi, lol." I stared at the screen. I couldn't process it. I was hanging upside down, bleeding out, potentially dying, and she was telling me to call an Uber so I wouldn't ruin her lunch with her best friend. The phone slipped from my hand and fell into the broken glass on the roof ceiling. The world started to go dark around the edges. The last thing I heard was the sound of a circular saw cutting into the metal of my door and a firefighter yelling, "Stay with me, buddy! Stay with us!" I woke up 2 days later in the ICU. The first thing I realized was that I couldn't move my leg. It was encased in a heavy cast and elevated. The second thing I realized was that I was incredibly thirsty. The third thing was the rage. It wasn't a hot, fiery anger. It was cold. It sat in my chest like a block of ice. My older brother, Mark, was sitting in the chair next to the bed. He looked terrible, stubble on his face, eyes red-rimmed. He had been crying. Mark is a tough guy, a contractor, the kind of guy who doesn't show emotion easily. Seeing him like that scared me more than the accident. "You're back," Mark said, his voice cracking. He stood up and grabbed my hand. "Thank God." I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. He gave me some ice chips. "Where is she?" I whispered. Mark's expression hardened. His jaw clenched so hard I thought a tooth might crack. "She came by yesterday, for 10 minutes. She asked the nurse if you had your wallet on you because she needed the insurance card for her car." "She didn't stay?" I asked. "I kicked her out," Mark said, his voice dropping to a growl. "She brought him, Tyler. He waited in the lobby. He actually asked me if the hospital cafeteria validated parking because the garage was a ripoff. I told them both that if they didn't leave, I'd throw them out a window." I closed my eyes. The text message replayed in my mind. "Don't be dramatic." "I need to talk to the police," I said. "They've been waiting for you to wake up," Mark said. "Officer Miller, he was the first responder. He's a good guy. He saved your life, kept pressure on your leg until the paramedics could get the jaws of life in there." Officer Miller came in later that afternoon. He was a big man with kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor. He pulled up a chair and took out a notebook. "Good to see you awake, son," Miller said. "You gave us a scare. The other driver was drunk. He's in custody. You're lucky the structural pillars of
Your SUV held up as well as they did." "I remember the text," I said, cutting to the chase. Miller paused. He looked at me, then at Mark, then back to me. He sighed. "Yeah, I saw it," Miller said quietly. "Your phone was in your hand when I got to the door. The screen was still on. Having lunch with Tyler. Just call an Uber. I saw it." He leaned in closer, his voice lowering. "Listen, I usually don't get involved in the personal side of things, but what I saw after, you need to know." "Tell me," I said. "The bistro they were at is about 2 miles from the crash site," Miller explained. "After the ambulance took you, I had to secure your vehicle and then notify your next of kin. Your phone was locked out after the screen timed out, but I saw the location of the sender on the map preview before it locked. I decided to go there personally since she wasn't answering calls." Miller took a breath. "I walked into that restaurant about 45 minutes after the crash. I was covered in road grime, debris, and, well, your blood. I found them at a window table. They were laughing, eating calamari. They had a bottle of wine open. I felt sick. Did they know?" "I walked up to the table," Miller continued. "She looked annoyed that a cop was interrupting her lunch. She asked if I was there to give you a ticket for being late. She actually said, 'He's so unreliable.'" Mark made a noise of disgust in the corner of the room. Miller went on. "I told her, 'Ma'am, he didn't get a flat. He's currently being airlifted to General with a crushed femoral artery and a collapsed lung. I saw the text you sent him while he was bleeding out. Don't be dramatic.'" "What did she do?" I asked. "She turned pale,
Like she wasn't sad, like she was embarrassed because people were looking. Then your friend, the guy she was with, he pipes up. He tells me to tone it down and that I'm ruining the vibe. He said you probably exaggerated the text. I told him if he said another word, I'd arrest him for obstruction just to ruin his afternoon, Miller said with a grim smile. She said she'd come to the hospital. She didn't show up for another 4 hours. She told the nurse she had to finish lunch and drop Tyler off at home first. That was the moment the last thread of attachment snapped. It wasn't just negligence, it was a complete and total lack of humanity. There's more, Miller said. While you were in surgery, we did a routine check of your home security logs because your brother asked us to secure the property. We saw them enter your house about 2 hours after the crash. I stiffened. My house? They were there for 40 minutes, Miller said. They left with a large file box and a laptop bag. My heart hammered against my ribs. My home office, the file box in the closet. It contained my passport, my social security card, the deed to the condo, $5,000 in emergency cash, and some bearer bonds my grandfather had left me. The laptop had my crypto wallets and all my banking passwords saved. I need a lawyer, and I need my locks changed. Way ahead of you, Mark said. I had the locksmith there this morning, but we need to deal with what they took. Recovery was a nightmare. I had 3 surgeries on my leg in the first week. The pain was constant, but the anger was a powerful fuel. I refused to let Sarah know I had been discharged to my brother's house. I went strictly no contact. I blocked her number on my primary line, but kept a burner phone active that I had linked to my old number just to monitor the texts for evidence. The messages were a descent into madness and entitlement. Day 1, where are you? The hospital said you were moved. Day 2, this is childish. We need to talk about the mortgage. It's due. Day 3, Tyler needs to borrow the truck. His car got booted again. Be a man and help him. Day 4, you are being financially abusive by cutting me off. I have needs. She didn't ask how I was, not once. She didn't ask if I was in pain. She asked about money. I spent those weeks in a wheelchair at Mark's kitchen table, working with a forensic accountant and a lawyer Mark knew. We dug into everything. The business idea Tyler had, a complete fabrication. But what we found on the credit card statements was worse. I had given Sarah a supplemental card for emergencies and groceries. The statement for the last month alone was over $6,000. Supreme Store, $450. PlayStation Network, $120. The Gentleman's Club, liquor store, $300. Online gambling site, $1,200. Consulting services, PayPal transfer, $2,000. The PayPal transfer was sent to an account linked to an email address, tylerscripts88@gmail. They were funneling my money directly to him. They were funding his lifestyle while I worked myself into the ground. Then came the email that sealed their fate. It arrived 2 weeks after the crash. Subject: we need to talk. I know you're ignoring me. Tyler says you're probably having a mental break from the trauma. We spoke to a lawyer, and since we've lived together for 3 years, we're basically common law married. I have rights to the assets. We need access to the main accounts to pay the bills. If you don't respond, we're going to file for power of attorney due to your incapacity. They were trying to take over my life. They thought I was brain damaged or too weak to fight back. They thought they could just declare me incompetent and loot the rest of my savings. Common law in Illinois, my lawyer laughed when he saw it. That doesn't exist here. But the threat to file for POA and the theft of the lockbox, that gives us everything we need. We went to a judge the next morning. With the police report of the theft, thanks to the security footage, the documented financial fraud on the credit cards, and the threatening emails, we got an emergency ex parte order. It included a temporary restraining order against both of them and a specific kick-out order barring them from the residence immediately due to the threat of further theft and dissipation of assets. It was time to go home. I arranged to meet them at the condo. I unblocked her number and sent one text: "Coming home. We need to talk." She replied instantly, "Finally, bring dinner." I arrived at the condo at 6 p.m. I was on crutches now, moving slowly but upright. Mark was with me, and so were two very large, very serious men from a private security firm I'd hired. I wasn't taking chances with Tyler. I unlocked the door. The smell hit me first. Stale pizza and weed. Sarah was lounging on the couch. Tyler was wearing my bathrobe, my expensive silk one, and drinking coffee out of my favorite mug. He had his feet up on the coffee table. "Finally," Sarah said, not even looking up from her phone. "Do you know how embarrassing it is for my card to be declined at Sephora? You need to fix the bank transfer limits, and Tyler needs you to sign off on a rental car for him." Tyler smirked at me. "Rough look, buddy. Leg looks stiff. You really milked that hospital stay, huh?" I hobbled into the room. I didn't sit down. I stood there, leaning on my crutches, looking at the people I had supported for years. They looked like vultures who were annoyed the carcass wasn't decaying fast enough. "Get out." My voice was quiet, steady. Sarah frowned, looking up. "What?" "Get out, both of you. You have 10 minutes before these gentlemen," I pointed to the security guard standing in the hallway, "remove you for trespassing." Tyler stood up, the robe falling to his ankles.
"Open." He laughed, a nervous, jerky sound. "Whoa, hold on. You can't kick her out. She lives here. Tenant rights, bro. You need to give 30 days notice. We looked it up." I reached into my bag and pulled out a stack of papers. "Actually, bro," I said, "this is a restraining order granted by a judge this morning based on domestic financial abuse, grand larceny, and fraud. The judge also granted an immediate exclusionary order. That means your tenant rights are void because you were an active threat to the property and the owner." I threw the papers on the coffee table, right on top of their pizza box. "And regarding you," I looked at Sarah, "you never signed a lease. You never paid a dime of rent. You are a guest, and your guest privileges have been revoked permanently." Sarah stood up, her face turning a mottled red. "You can't do this. I love you. I was traumatized by your accident. Tyler was just helping me cope." "Helping you cope by spending $5,000 on my credit card in 2 weeks?" I asked. "I saw the charges and the PayPal transfers to him. That's wire fraud, Sarah." Tyler's face went white. He started to back away towards the bedroom. I didn't. That was a loan," Tyler stammered. "I have the logs," I said, "and I had the security footage of you two entering my office and taking the safe box while I was in surgery." "That was for safekeeping," Sarah shrieked. "We were protecting your assets from burglars." "Where is it?" I asked. "It's safe," Tyler said, eyeing the door. "It's in the trunk of his Honda," Mark said from the doorway. "We checked a garage on the way up. The lock is busted." I looked at Tyler. "That box contained bearer bonds and cash. Since you broke the lock, that's burglary and tampering. And since the value is over $5,000, that's a Class 2 felony." Tyler panicked. He actually tried to bolt. He ran towards the door, trying to squeeze past the security guard. It was pathetic. The guard, a guy who looked like he chewed rocks for fun, simply extended one arm. Tyler bounced off him like a rubber ball and fell onto the floor. "Don't touch me," Tyler screamed, scrambling back. "I'll sue. I know my rights." "You're not suing anyone," I said. "You're waiting for the police. Officer Miller is on his way." Sarah started crying. It was that ugly, manipulative crying she used whenever she wanted a new purse or a trip. She fell to her knees, reaching for my hand. "Baby, please. He made me do it. He said you were going to die and leave me with nothing. I was just scared. I love you. Don't let them take me." I looked down at her. I remembered the text. "Have lunch with Tyler. Just call an Uber." "You were eating calamari while I was bleeding on the highway," I said. "You told me not to be dramatic." "It was a joke," she wailed. "I didn't know." "You knew. And even if you didn't care. Get your things, whatever you can carry in 2 trash bags. The rest goes into storage, and you can pay the facility to get it out." The police arrived 5 minutes later. Officer Miller was grinning when he cuffed Tyler. They found my bearer bonds in Tyler's backpack, along with my missing watch. The fallout was swift and brutal. Because of the theft and the restraining order, Sarah was removed from the property that night. She tried to go to Tyler's apartment, but his roommates wouldn't let her in because Tyler owed them rent. She ended up having to call her parents in Wisconsin to come get her.
I haven't seen her face since that night, only the back of her head in a courtroom. We pressed charges. I didn't hold back. Tyler was charged with burglary, grand larceny, and identity theft. It turned out he had also opened a credit card in my name using the info from the stolen file box. Because he had a prior record for fraud, surprise, surprise, the DA went hard. He took a plea deal for 3 years in state prison to avoid the federal wire fraud charges. I sued Sarah in civil court for the credit card debt and the money she siphoned to Tyler. She tried the domestic partnership defense, claiming she was entitled to the lifestyle she had become accustomed to. My lawyer destroyed her. He projected the text message onto the screen in the courtroom. "Your Honor," my lawyer said, "this is not the behavior of a partner. This is the behavior of a parasite." The judge agreed. I got a judgment for the full amount, $18,000 plus legal fees. Her wages are being garnished. She's working as a receptionist at a dental office now. It's going to take her about 10 years to pay me back. I sold the condo 3 months later. I couldn't live there anymore. Every room reminded me of them. I bought a smaller place, a loft with exposed brick, just for me. No guest room for mooching best friends. The recovery for my leg was long. I still walk with a cane, and I probably always will. My structural integrity was compromised, but I didn't collapse. I stayed single for a long time. I needed to reinforce my own foundations before I could let anyone else in. But honestly, the peace and quiet is amazing. My bank account is actually growing now that I'm not funding a 3-person lifestyle on one salary. A few weeks ago, I got a letter from prison. He was from Tyler. He wrote about how he's found God and wants to make amends. He suggested that when he gets out, we could collaborate on a book about our experience. I burned the letter in my sink. Then, just yesterday, I got a DM on Instagram, a new account with no profile pic. "I miss us. Tyler ruined everything. I was so young and stupid. Can we get coffee? I still have your favorite hoodie." I didn't block her immediately. That felt too emotional. Instead, I took a screenshot of the latest garnishment notification I received from the court, $145.50 taken from her paycheck. I sent it to her with the caption, "Payment received. Remaining balance, $16,420. Thanks for the coffee." Then I blocked her. They wanted to feast on my carcass. They thought I was just a support beam they could lean on until I broke. But they forgot one thing. When a structure fails, it usually brings the whole house down on top of whoever is standing inside. So, if you want to see the exclusive security footage of a grown man in a silk robe bouncing off a security guard like a ping pong ball, hit that subscribe button. And remember, if your partner prioritizes their appetizers over your arterial bleeding, it's time to cancel their subscription to your life.